Okay, everybody, welcome back to a Wise Wealth podcast. We've got an awesome guest with us on this show today. We have got Stuart Nichols. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to do any introductions. I'm going to let Stuart introduce himself and give a brief background on yourself. So if we can hand over to Stuart, that would be awesome.
Great, thanks, Sam. Hi, so I'm Stuart Nicol. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Quantum Exponential Group PLC. We're quoted in the UK and we've raised funds to invest in quantum technology companies, which we hope will be they very much are part of the next stage of innovation globally.
Awesome. So I suppose just to sort of break down a little bit more about your background, we can see that you previously worked at Octopus Investments as a director. Could you give us a bit of a brief intro into what that sort of role looked like and what you was doing there?
Yeah, sure. So primarily, I guess it's been, since 2000, I've been in venture capital, which is similar to the job I do today. That's what I did with Octopus. With Octopus, I had already been in a couple of other venture capital funds. So I raised money. Octopus had raised 100 million plus in venture capital trusts, and then we invested those in a range of normally tech-based businesses, but some non-tech. And it's really about assessing finding the companies, assessing them. I was responsible for a team doing that as well. Then making the investments, typically sitting on the board or being an observer on the board, and then getting them to a successful sale, which is normally to a trade buyer.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. You can see, I suppose, a lot of the guys that are listening are probably in their age of 25 to 35, I would say. And I suppose a lot of them are familiar with CrowdCube. We can see that you've had some experience there. Am I right in saying you was the growth director there?
Yeah, that's right. So I joined CrowdCube when there were 8 to 12 people. So we were all in one room. And I was their first external non-executive director. And then gradually, as they grew and grew more funding, then I stayed with them for near enough 3 years. Helped them do some co-investments of venture capital for the Mayor of London's fund on the side, and really watched the business grow from up to about 80 people strong. Amazing.
What's your sort of opinion of CrowdCube raising in general for sort of investors?
I think it's great for B2C businesses. It's pretty helpful for some venture-backed businesses to get the crowd on board. Clearly, it's harder for hardware companies or things that aren't so glamorous, if you like. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's also very useful if you're trying to raise somewhere else and you want to almost use the crowdfunding as a bit of a threat to make sure those investors make their minds up and make a decision. Then that's useful as well. And I guess a further thing is you're often, as an entrepreneur, there are some people you don't want to ask because you don't feel you know them that well, and there's other people you just don't think would be interested. So often it's actually your own network surprises you, but they wouldn't have done it unless the structure of the crowdfunding was in place.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm a CrowdCube investor in Monzo, the bank, and also Moneybox. But I suppose from my point of view, it's like now that you're invested into it, it's just whether or not they actually go public or when you can, release that profit from the growth of the crowdfunding.
Yeah. I think it's also really excellent training. A lot of people end up being business angels when they're in their kind of mid-50s or something, and then you maybe got 15 years of investing to kind of learn about it and get it right. I think with the crowdfunding, you can do it with a pretty modest amounts of money, build a little portfolio and really work out how hard it is, and maybe focus in on where your strengths at investing are, and how best to do it without losing a whole lot of money.
No, I agree. I think it's quite it's an attractive way as well, isn't it, of getting into businesses that haven't gone public. And I suppose a lot of say maybe retail investors, they miss out on the IPOs of businesses and things like that. And I suppose it's a way for them to get in prior.
Yeah.
So now you're the Chief Investment Officer at Quantum Exponential. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Quantum Exponential is and sort of what your role is there?
Yeah, so we're quoted on AQUIS, which is a small UK registered stock market. My job is to arrange the investment strategy, and then we have a team of us who go, again, similar to what I've done for the last 20 years. You go out, you find the deals, you choose which ones you want to invest in, you sit on the boards, and you try and get them through, at the moment, further fundraisers, eventually, hopefully, to a profitable exit.
Okay. And I suppose, go on.
Sorry, we've just completed our 6th investment in that, and we hope to complete another 1, maybe 2 over the next couple of months.
Okay, and for Quantum, obviously, Quantum Exponential is it's in the name. Obviously, what's this sort of investment focus that they focus on, and I suppose the companies behind that?
Yeah, so quantum technology is underpinned by quantum physics, which is the science of the small. So this is how nature organizes itself at the subatomic level. So that, it might seem crazy and technology, wild, but this is just really how nature works and creates things. And what we've, over the past 100 years, and especially in the last 10 years, the scientists have really got to a much better understanding of how that works, so they can observe and monitor it, and hence make things like sensors out of it, and also so they can start to manipulate things like single photons, which they can move from one place to another. And within quantum physics, it has a number of advantages, such that it's much more efficient to do. If you're able to organize and move these subatomic elements around, then you can create computers out of them, and they will do far better calculations in certain areas, typically around probability, than classical computers will do, and also at much lower energy levels than, say, a supercomputer would. And within sensing, you can start to see things like the ground under our feet in an efficient manner, just because of the differences in things like gravity. These absolutely, sub-minute differences, but we now are able to build these machines to sense kind of, if you like, what nature had already provided for us. We're just sort of becoming aware of it.
That is fascinating. I suppose for our listeners, on a very basic level, what's the best way to sort of, for those that don't understand, what is the best way of describing what quantum physics is, I suppose?
Yeah, so classical physics deals with everything, if you like, you can see and feel and touch, and quantum physics is, as I say, it's a subatomic level, so at the absolute, beyond microscopic level. And it's been proven that physics at that level functions differently. So it's different properties. But as I said before, these are the properties that nature has given them. So within that, you really want to go into it now, but people can, as I say, we're able to sense things, and we're able to use new types of computers to do much better calculations in some areas than we did before. So it's almost easier to think about what the output is, if you like, rather than trying to, it's a bit like, do you want to drive a car, or do you want to understand how an internal combustion engine works? Sort of safer to do it that way.
Okay. And why sort of now? Why is Quantum Exponential investing into quantum focused businesses? And I suppose why are you investing into those, and what makes those companies attractive? Yeah,
so we really believe there's been quite a lot of government investment globally, tens of billions pretty much into quantum over the last 15, 20 years, and especially in the last 5 to 10. And that's created more companies which are spinning out of, and they therefore need funding and advice from companies like us. And we hope we've got into these investments at a sensible stage, and they're now starting to commercialize. They're starting to develop and sell their actual products, and that's a pretty good place to be for a venture capitalist and an early stage investor. And then we can help them grow, sell, make profits, and in time be acquired, more likely to be acquired than to float, but you know, it could be either option, and then we recoup our funds and go again.
Okay, interesting. And I suppose what sort of trends or emerging technologies in this space are you most excited about as an investor, and why?
Yeah, so I guess the real exciting one that people have looked at is quantum computers, and what will that, you know, as I say, allow us to do. So if you like, a standard computer has a bit, which is a 0 and a 1, a gate. A quantum computer can do 0 and 1 and anything between 0 and 1, which is a bit of a head turner, but that's you know, one of the joys of the possibilities of doing things at the quantum level. So that means, as I said before, you can make these calculations much faster, and you can start to, because you're doing things at the level that nature creates, you can start to mimic nature. So you can start to look at, you know, very complicated things like protein folding for new types of medicines. You can start to look at chemical processes which are much more efficient, could be made much more efficient by quantum rather than our current understanding. So that's like the big win, and we're a few years away from that. We kind of know that the science is correct, and we've got relatively small quantum computers which can do some tasks already, but we'd hope that in the next, I don't know, 3 to 7 years, I would say, we will have quantum computers of significant size which will be able to do these, look at nature in ways we've never been able to before, and therefore create massive increases in ability and efficiency for humanity, you know, on a sort of bigger than the internet scale of difference. On a slightly more mundane level, we now are able to understand what's at the quantum level much better. So things like sensors are much more capable of being useful than previously. So I mentioned one that, you know, can look under the ground. There's one we've already invested in, a company called QLM, and it has a LiDAR that can sense methane emissions. So if you think of it like a sort of CCTV camera overlooking a oil and gas pipeline network, it can 24 hours a day immediately sense if there's been a leak of that, and what the volume is, what, you know, what's leaked, so we can you know, stop that leak, which is obviously, you know, such leaks are really bad for the environment, they're expensive, and they're dangerous.
Yeah. So that it sounds really, really exciting. You said about, I suppose this could really sort of change as well in the healthcare space, when you was talking about what was it?
I kind of mentioned protein folding and sort of other ways of maybe creating new pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, correct. And are you seeing large sort of investments going into that space for healthcare? Because I mean, it's like you just said, look, and we're just on a level, on a lower level, you can see from a sensors point of view what that could actually do on a greater scale in healthcare could be huge.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of people, there's about 8 to 10 different ways, depending on who you speak to, of actually creating a quantum computer. So a lot of the pharma companies and the people who invest in the pharma companies are supporting the growth of these new types of quantum computers, and probably it will end up that some of these computers would be better able to do pharmaceutical work than others. But again, also there's, you know, that's the sort of glamorous, the big hope, but there are other companies which are doing things like mimicking the experiments that need to be done in labs, but via a computer first, such that you need to do less of those actual experiments in the labs. So you're going to get to your goal quicker and more efficiently with the benefit of some quantum computing and some of the classical work and classical computing we've already done in the past.
I suppose right now for quantum computing, would you say that we really are at the early stages of the development phase?
No, I think we're part way through, and we're relatively close. Nobody's quite sure how close we're going to be to a sort of getting a major fault tolerant quantum computer.
Okay, and sort of out of that, outside of just I'd say the quantum computing build, are you seeing any other emerging trends or interests around it?
Yeah, so I guess another piece of quantum that's been investigated is around timing. So, for example, GPS is a satellite organized way, which we all rely upon way more than we should right now. It's possible to deny that GPS and just take that away, and this happens in war zones more and more frequently. So there's quite a lot of interest in finding mechanisms to make sure where an aircraft exactly is at any one time without needing to rely on GPS. And that's some of the shrinking you can achieve in these devices, because you've got quantum technology within there, should enable us to do that.
So I suppose based off of that, you could actually see quite a large investment coming from sort of military backing companies as well to sort of leverage quantum computing.
Yeah, and all the governments grant wise with a nod to their defence as well. It's one of the reasons they've been supporting quantum. Another fear or likelihood is actually with a quantum computer, you can in theory, you can defeat any encryption that we have on any of our devices. So quantum computers aren't big enough yet, but what people are doing is or states are doing, is harvesting the current data such that when quantum computers do become good enough, they can decrypt that data. Now, okay, that's not as useful as decrypting today's data at the time, which I guess they'll hope to anyway, but it's still pretty useful to know what everybody was saying, I don't know, 2-3 years before. So there's been quite a lot of investment, and one of our investments, Arkit, is seeking to solve that problem.
I suppose as well, just from going off of that with quantum computing, I suppose stuff like forecasting, predicting, things like that will be dramatically sped up, and I suppose more accurate in the future. Stuff like, I suppose, when you're looking at, a lot of people are looking at the ice caps melting, things like that with predictions and forecasts. I suppose once quantum computing is really developed, it should allow that to be a lot more accurate. Is that right to say?
Yeah, that's correct. But obviously, it shouldn't stop us trying to deal with the problems we know already. And also, it's quite, quantum computers are excellent at large-scale optimization problems. So that also leads into logistics. What's the best, most efficient route to take? It also leads into portfolio investment decisions, and therefore into kind of machine optimization as well. And there's very much a linkage between quantum computing and AI in these sort of areas.
That's that's my next question, is how do you see quantum computing sort of, do they sort of come head on with each other, or do they work side by side with AI?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll work side by side. I think AI is obviously more software orientated, and quantum computing is hardware, which needs its own middleware and software around it in order to do the useful things that you want it to. And so on the fringes of its own software, it's going to communicate with AI as well.
Wow. So we're sort of creating supercomputers that's going to do a lot of the work for us. I suppose, any of the companies that you've seen or have been working on in investments, is there any sort of real world applications, like you're saying about the sensors, are other things that you can talk about that sort of quantum computing is sort of focused on?
Um, yeah, as I say, so people are already using those. I do a lot of mentoring as well for other organizations. There's an organization called Creative Destruction Lab, which is global but based out of Canada. And within their quantum stream, they have people currently solving for hedge funds large scale optimization problems in their portfolio, and showing that they can outperform the market doing that. So that's real and live at the moment.
That's really interesting. So yeah, I suppose once you've got a fund that's specifically using quantum computing to make investment decisions, that's that it'd be interesting to see how that actually creates a strong performance and how it performs.
I mean, my personal view is that we probably ought to make things more efficient, but still you're going to have black swan events that it's not going to be able to solve for. It may be able to react quicker or give you a better plan when they happen. But yeah,
I suppose that's how long in your mind do you think it will be until a hedge fund comes along fully run by quantum computing and AI?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that ought not to happen. I mean, with the financial services are not a great history of when you just leave the algorithms to act on their own. So it needs a human on the tiller, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the questions I've got is, how do you identify potential investment opportunities in the quantum space, and what factors do you consider before making an investment?
Yeah, so we're and this is very similar to normal venture capital as well, or but within any deep tech, you want to go to the source of where the really clever people have the time to be developing the deep tech. So we work closely with a lot of universities and any adjacent accelerators. I mentioned Creative Destruction Lab. Our offices in London are in the Institute of Physics. We just sponsored a prize on quantum in business, hopefully to help those companies, but it gives us a look-see at who's innovating and where they are. So that's the primary area. We have a really large and global advisory board, and they bring us a lot of deal flow as well, and that ranges from quantum physicists working as professors to former heads of UK Space Agency to former politicians, etc. Broad range of people.
Okay.
And then people, if you're an entrepreneur, you kind of, one of your challenges is to find the money. So they use their initiative, and we do enough talks and marketing, and they find us.
And so what factors would you look for when you're making that decision of whether they're the right company for your portfolio?
Yeah, so in this, again, all the usual thing, you're looking, can you work with these people? Can they form a good team? You're looking at the intellectual property. I'm not a quantum physicist. We have a quantum physicist on our team who looks into that in depth. You want to make sure that the potential future market is large enough. For us, we've just raised an initial amount of money, and then in time we'll hope to raise much more in order to invest more in these companies, but therefore our needs and their needs need to match up. So we don't want, we couldn't, unless we're investing with others, we need to match up how much cash we've got and how much they need in the short to medium term. And then we run through a due diligence. We're basically checking that what they've told us is true, and asking third parties, typically our advisory board and other experts, as to whether we think this could be one. So we're pretty selective, but it's sort of educated common sense, really.
Sure. And I suppose once they're then part of your portfolio, What sort of risk management do you have in place with them going forward to sort of keep it all on track and in line with what your expectations are?
Yeah, so these are really individually, these are very high risk investments. So one, we have a portfolio such that if things don't work out, then that's unfortunate for that one company, but it doesn't mean overall we ought not to make a return. We try and help the companies as best as we can, with new hires, with looking at their next round of funding, with introductions to businesses and other grant funding bodies. So we work, quite closely to ensure that's possible as well.
Is there sort of any tax? That sounds strange to say, you might not be able to answer, but is there any tax benefits for investing into these types of companies?
I guess it depends how you do it. So within our particular funds, we don't, if you were to invest in our company on AQUIS, you don't get a tax benefit at the time. If you were to co-invest with us as a business angel, then often at the moment you'd be able to get SEIS, sometimes EIS. I presume your audience knows about those, but
yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. So can individuals listening actually go and invest into your company?
Yeah, I think so. So normally there are co-investors and angels that come in alongside us. Normally, to be honest, the companies found those themselves, and they may be. We have a company, Silicon, for example, which is looking at using its sensors to help better monitor eyesight loss.
Okay.
And so they've got quite a few ophthalmologists who they would discuss, at an early stage what their plans were, and they're angel investors as well. So they tend to be, people want to have value-added investors at that piece. It's less about the money.
That makes sense. So one sec, just to break that down. So they're using quantum computing to help with recognizing eyesight loss. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, when you go to an optician's at the moment, you look at a big box and they show you the back of your eye, and they're looking really for the main thing they're looking for is any signs of macular degeneration. This piece at the back of your eye, which over time, as you get older, a lot of degenerates for a lot of people. If what they can do, because they've created, one of the world's most sophisticated optical coherence tomography for an integrated circuit. So they've turned that big box of mirrors into a small computer chip, and then that will enable them to put it into a sort of Oculus type device, and then people could be visited at home or in their care home, or if they know they have macular degeneration, they could look for signs of it getting worse. It's very important with that particular degeneration that if it does get worse, you know about it as soon as possible, because then there's a lot that can be done for that. But if you just had your medical appointment and then day two of that, before the next 6 weeks, it happened on day 2, and you didn't do anything about it, then your eyesight's going to be massively worse. So they're working with people like the Macular Society to try and improve that and bring that product to market.
That's awesome. Some of these projects that you're involved with, they sound so futuristic as well. It must be interesting to see what sort of, even like I said, the sensors. I find that pretty awesome to be able to see. Yeah. Is there any other projects like that you can talk about, just out of interest or not?
So as I said, I think so. The really big thing will be getting quantum computers to scale, and we've invested in 2 and another sort of supplier into that hardware. So we've invested in one at the University of Sussex, and they were able to basically, approve a key area within quantum last week, which should help their particular type of quantum computer expand and be more accurate, if you like. And they won a very large contract with the German government late last year, which will also help fund that progress. So yeah, that's going to be the big one. But it's we will have these really amazing machines that a lot of different people are working on, but then they can be, a lot of them can be used for different things. So most of them will be held in the cloud, and some of them, another of our investments, Oxford Quantum Circuits, you can already go onto Amazon Bracket and use that now. You can just go on and ask it questions. So people will, a car maker could be asking it a question, and a pharmaceutical firm could be asking it a question, and defense could be asking it a question, and it'll be able to solve those questions in quicker in time once they're scaled up, quicker and better than the best high performance computers can now.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I suppose from a portfolio point of view, is it sort of like, let's say if you took 10 different companies, is it the matter of fact that you only need 1 or 2 of those to actually do really well out of your portfolio of 10 to make a positive return?
Yeah, obviously it depends, if it's just arithmetic, but if you make 50, 100 times your money on one of them, then the rest don't matter so much. But they're kind of all your babies.
Yeah.
You don't want anything to go wrong with any of them. Some have different risks and returns. So for example, the sensing businesses should be less risky, need less money, but maybe the return's not going to be as big, but still that's a sensible bet, investment to make. Whereas others, yeah, I guess one of the challenges is until you've actually sold it, you don't know whether you're going to make a return. So it might look for a period that you're going to make 100x on something, and then I don't know, well, the Ukraine war happens or something else goes off, and suddenly it's not of value at all. So it's
sure.
a roller coaster.
And I suppose most portfolios, they have sort of like a time frame or a timeline for that to develop. What's that sort of timeline for you guys? Is that a couple of years, or is that a 10-year plan? How sort of long is that?
Again, I think what we've tried to do with our portfolio I've tried to do is make sure that we balance things out of the time we expect them to create value, and we balance out the risk from kind of higher risk quantum computing to lower risk sensing. So I would say sort of 3 to 7 years, but that could push out to 10. And normally in the sort of deep tech, which this is a part of, you'd expect them to be more at the 6 to 10 years than the 2 to 5 years, which maybe some of the more consumer focused investors would hope for.
Come through. So I suppose it's a big question. I've only got a couple of questions left for yourself. I suppose for people listening that are just general investors, what's the best way for them to keep up to date with latest developments in quantum computing and related technology? What sort of resources do you rely on to be able to keep up to date with that information?
I guess, there's there was an interesting article in the Times yesterday and on Sifted around quantum, but I guess that's more sort of the Sifted one was startups in Europe at the minute. The Times one was more around government strategy.
Okay.
I think if Google and others are clever enough, if you start looking for quantum, you'll start to see more quantum in your feed, and then you can learn it that way. There are some pretty good sort of easy readers. So this one, I'm not on commission, but it's by Wired magazine.
Okay.
It's a sort of dummies guide to the different types of quantum computing. But do remember, quantum technology is way broader than quantum computing.
Yeah.
Physics world, if anybody's wants to go there, they're reporting it a lot, obviously.
Going a bit deeper there. So I suppose from your expert opinion, as the last question is a tough one, where do you see quantum computing in 10 years? Do you see that affecting everybody's day-to-day life? Or do you see it as, I suppose, I'll leave it open for you to say, where do you see it in 10 years in sort of the development stages?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident we'll have working at scale quantum computers, a number of different, a bit like, we have enough of different vehicles to get us to A to B. There'll be a number of different quantum computers that use different means to get from question to answer. And I believe that will make a massive difference to our world. And I really hope it will help with things like climate change and healthcare. Will anybody know about it? There's a bit of me that feels it'll just be, well, that's great. We didn't expect, this to be at this price, or medicine to be as this specific for us, but we're not quite sure about how that happened, and it may well be, the calculations may have been from a quantum computer.
So it's sort of sitting in the background sort of thing. They don't actually.
So, yeah. But a bit like, the early computers were in, sort of warehouse sized and well away from everybody. But I think we only really understood the difference computers made when we started having our own laptops and stuff, but they've been making a difference for way longer than that.
That's true. So you feel like there could be almost like a lag effect before anyone actually realizes it's quantum computing behind it. I suppose the physics.
Well, hopefully we'll start to get a bit more education into schools and everything. I was at University of Manchester last month, and one of the people, it was like an open day, and there was a lady who was still at school. She turned up and said, look, this is just amazing, but why don't we know anything about this in school? Why do I have to learn classical physics to then maybe learn, I don't know, 20 minutes of quantum physics? And that's as a sector, we really need to get that education in earlier, and hopefully translate some of the, as I said, this is amazement of nature and how we're harnessing it rather than anything spooky we're doing. Get that across to more people.
So that'll be interesting. So hopefully in the future we could see quantum computing or quantum physics specific university degrees for people to focus.
That's already happened. It's more at the school level. Part of it, I haven't looked at the A-level syllabus, but I imagine there's a very small amount of
bringing it to the early age, early learning as well. So it's just setting off the pathway for their learning and education. No, that would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. It sounds like the future, and it's thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been fantastic having you. And I suppose anybody that's listening, what's the sort of best way to find more about either yourself or your business?
Yeah, sure. So our website is quantumexp.co.uk, and it's probably easiest to reach me through there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us.
Right, my pleasure. Thank you.